The chapter Two Stories About Flying tells us about dealing with fear and inhibitions. As the title suggests, this chapter is a compilation of two stories. The first one is His First Flight, written by Liam O'Flaherty. This is a story of a young seagull who overcomes his fear and attempts his first flight. His First Flight by Liam O'Flaherty. The young seagull was alone on his ledge. His two brothers and his sister had already flown away the day before. He had been afraid to fly with them. Somehow, when he had taken a little run forward to the brink of the ledge and attempted to flap his wings, he became afraid. The great expanse of sea stretched down beneath, and it was such a long way down, miles down. He felt certain that his wings would never support him. So he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. Even when each of his brothers and his little sister, whose wings were far shorter than his own, ran to the brink, flapped their wings and flew away, he failed to muster up courage to take that plunge which appeared to him so desperate. His father and mother had come around calling to him shrilly, upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve on his ledge unless he flew away. But for the life of him, he could not move. That was 24 hours ago. Since then, nobody had come near him. The day before, all day long, he had watched his parents flying about with his brothers and sister, perfecting them in the art of flight, teaching them how to skim the waves and how to dive for fish. He had, in fact, seen his older brother catch his first herring and devour it, standing on a rock, while his parents circled around, raising a proud cackle. And all the morning, the whole family had walked about on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. The sun was now ascending the sky, blazing on his ledge that faced the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge, and standing on one leg, with the other leg hidden under his wing, he closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. Still, they took no notice of him. He saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau, dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. His father was preening the feathers on his white back. Only his mother was looking at him. She was standing on a little high hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again, she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. "Ga, ga, ga," he cried, begging her to bring him some food. "Ga, call, ah," she screamed back derisively. But he kept calling plaintively. And after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of the fish and was flying across to him with it. He leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within the reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer. And then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. Then a monstrous terror seized him, and his heart stood still. Let's understand the story in detail, shall we? As we read, this young seagull was learning to fly. His siblings had already learnt the art of flight because of their parents. The previous day, they ran to the brink of the ledge and flew off. But this young seagull was so scared, he was just left alone on his ledge. And although he ran forward and attempted to flap his wings, he was certain that those tiny wings of his would never support him. His parents coaxed and scolded him. They threatened him, and they threatened to starve him unless he flew away. But that poor young seagull was too scared to fly. I mean, poor thing. Indeed. 24 hours had passed since then. Nobody had come near him. All day long, he just watched his parents and siblings flying about. They were perfecting the art of flight, and they learned then to dive for fish. His older brother had caught his first herring. The young seagull saw his parents applauding the brother for his feat. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the young seagull felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. He tried to attract the attention of his family by pretending to be asleep. But none of his siblings or his father took notice of him. Only his mother kept looking at him. She stood on a rock, tearing a piece of fish with her beak. Now, obviously the sight of food made him even hungrier than before. He cried at her, but he just screamed back mockingly. Suddenly, the mother began approaching him with the food. But then suddenly she halted midway, keeping the fish just out of his reach. Hungry as he was, he dived for the fish, but his mother flew upward and he started to fall. A monstrous terror seized him. Thus we see the story highlights the importance of independence, self-belief and confidence, and the need for motivation to attain one's goals. The story also shows how motivation can be imparted tactfully. With that, we've come to the end of the story. But I shall be back with another story of this very chapter. Until then, stay focused. Goodbye. Tutormate. For more amazing video lectures, download the free app on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store.